Hey, good morning. This is Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here as usual on Wednesday. Actually, last week was a little different. I did it on Friday and Wednesday, but usually I'm here on Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time to talk to you about Stonemaier Games news, what's going on here at Stonemaier Games, to answer your non-spoiler questions, and that includes the new viticulture expansion, which I will officially be revealing a ton of stuff about next Wednesday, and to discuss some random topics, just some fun stuff going on in my life and hopefully your life too. I'd love to hear how you are doing. I'll start off today with a chocolate of the day. I have a special chocolate of the day because my dear girlfriend Megan ate part of a chocolate bar recently, and she left me the middle part right here. So I get this big chunky part of a Tony's chocolate bar. This is the hazelnut, my favorite version of Tony's, and I get this nice big chunk thanks to Megan for gnawing around it on the outside. So thank you, Megan, for that nice bit of chocolate. I'm sure she's embarrassed that I'm talking about this right now. Are you embarrassed, Megan? Yeah, she said a little bit. I say that with love because I love chocolate, and Megan knows that. Good morning to everyone joining me today. Dominic, Keith, Todd, Daniel, Navia, I won't say everyone's name, George, Tony. Now I've said everyone's name. Who's here so far. Thank you for joining me for this weekly discussion. Ronak and Chris are here as well. So what's going on at Stonemaier Games? I had a good playtest for a product last week. My co-founder Alan and I got together for a playtest. Been dealing with tax stuff. It's tax season, so we're wrapping up some tax stuff. And I think tomorrow is the day that I'll do the annual Stonemaier Games stakeholder report on the Stonemaier Games blog. I do this once a year where I talk about kind of the current state of Stonemaier Games, how we did in the last year, some pretty specific numbers about how we did. I hope that's interesting to people, or useful to other creators. I'm not exactly sure how, but different people find different utilities from the content that I write about on the Stonemaier Games blog. So I'll probably do that tomorrow. If you're watching this right now, you are a stakeholder. It's different than a shareholder. A shareholder owns part of Stonemaier Games. A stakeholder is someone who has any level of stake in Stonemaier Games. You might, if you're watching this right now, that means that you have a stake in this livecast right now, or you have a stake in Stonemaier Games because you want us to make good products or good games and good expansions and things like that, or you like the content we create, or you want us to make better content. All that is that you have some sort of a stake in Stonemaier Games, and so that's why I share that annual stakeholder report. Dan, Mark, Nicholas, thanks for joining us. Nicholas says favorite asymmetric experience based on last YouTube Sunday sit down. So Nicholas is referring to the video I posted this past Sunday, which was about asymmetric pairings in games. That's when you combine two different asymmetric elements to form a third combined asymmetric element with perhaps my favorite example being in a game that I designed in Scythe, where you combine an asymmetric player mat that's different than all the different player mats with an asymmetric faction mat, and you put them together and you get an asymmetric combination there. And Nicholas, I have the whole video about that on Sunday that you can check out and see my rankings. One thing that I didn't cover all that well in the video are asymmetric pairings in cooperative games where you have a single asymmetric element, so not a paired asymmetric element, but the AI of the game, like in Spirit Island, for example, has a unique asymmetric element to it as well. So the pairing comes from not your own personal tableau, but what you have paired with what the AI of the game is, whatever the game is playing. So Spirit Island, I think, is a great example of that, as is another game from that company, Sentinels of the Multiverse. Cynthia says, cool shirt. Yeah, this is my Howler shirt for Red Rising. Some Red Rising love today. Abigail Molly, thanks for joining us today. Carlos says, this weekend he had a wonderful time playing Tapestry. It reminded him why it's his #1 favorite board game. I'm honored to hear that, Carlos. Carlos says, in a way it feels complete, and your work on the neoprene board and your mention of printing civilization adjustment cards, which I'll mention in a second, with the final adjustments seem to indicate that you might also feel this way. But at the same time, I remember you mentioning that you would talk to Mike Young, the Arts and Architecture's co-designer, about a possible new expansion. How do you feel now about that possibility? So what Carlos is partially referring to is that yesterday on Board Game Geek and in the Tapestry Facebook group, I posted that we feel like we're getting close to having enough data about the civilizations in Tapestry. We're always getting more data. More data is always good, but we feel like we have enough data to potentially make a final adjustment to any civilizations that need an adjustment. And in doing so, we can actually reprint some of those civilizations that need an adjustment, or that would benefit from, would balance-wise would benefit from an adjustment, whether it's a tiny one or a slightly larger one for some civilizations. And so for the first time, I'm really considering reprinting some of those civilization mats and making them available in an upgrade pack, or an update pack, not upgrade, update pack. And in part of that, and part of those posts, Carlos, you may have seen this, is that I said that there is still the possibility of another Tapestry expansion, but that would not conflict with what we're trying to do here with these final adjustments. So if you're curious about that and want to offer your feedback, whether it's just reading through the proposed adjustments or ideally maybe playtesting with some of them, they're publicly posted on Board Game Geek and in the Tapestry Tapestry Facebook group, where you can go check them out and see what those adjustments are and report your findings, whether it's your fully informed opinion from playtesting or just your informed opinion from playing Tapestry on the form provided there. Yeah, so I'm excited to do that and see what results we get. We did spend quite a bit of time working on the proposals, but I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts and feedback as well. Paul is dropping by today. Paul Grogan stopping by to say that he's looking at a wedding venue today. Well, congratulations, Paul, on an upcoming wedding for, I assume, yourself. Congratulations if that's the case. Let's see. Jared says, do I have any interesting ways to determine who picks the game for game nights? For a while, we did a filler game first, and the winner got to pick the main event game, but we switched back to a normal rotation so that everyone gets an equal opportunity to pick. I like both of those methods, Jared. I think that's a clever method to have the winner occasionally, the winner of a filler game, occasionally pick the next game. All too often, our method is we stand around for a while until someone puts something down on the table and says, this is what we're playing. I would say in our group, or I have two different gaming groups, and in the one that I host, people typically bring games and put them on the table and say, this is what I'm really hoping to play tonight. And usually that happens. But I like that, Jared, your focus on equity there, that you try to give everyone a chance to pick the game for game night. Because if it's always someone bringing a game to game night, someone else might have a game that they really want to play that they just don't get to ever play. So I try to keep an eye on that, but I don't have an official method for doing that. In my other game nights, it really varies, I think, on what people want to play at any given time. There isn't, again, an official rotation to it. I don't know if I have a recommended method, but I think that the core idea that I try to keep in mind is I try to be aware of other people's wants and needs and desires at game nights that I attend or that I host, and I try to help facilitate in some way, even if it's in soft methods, facilitate that everyone gets to play something that they're really excited about. Maybe not every week, but on occasion, every month at least. Yeah. Naziz says, I wanted to ask if you played Blood and Sand, the Blood and Sand version of Kemet yet. I have not played my copy of Blood and Sand yet, unfortunately. And he asked if I could play one or the other, which one would I keep? I'm guessing I would play. I mean, I actually no longer have the original Kemet in my collection, so I would probably by default play the Blood and Sand version. But I don't know. I'm curious if anyone would play the original after playing the revised version. Yeah. Would you? Yeah, what's your take on it? George says that his Red Rising Disc Golf disc is on the way. Yes, I wanted to mention how April Fool's went last week. When I was live last week, I didn't really know how it was going to go, except kind of as we were live, I started to realize that we were going to very quickly sell out of those discs. We were only allowed to make a limited number of each disc based on Innova's custom printing guidelines. But we really did make them. They were a very real product. It just, if you showed up a little bit too late, no fault of your own, they sold out very quickly. You may have seen them sold out and thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't. We really made these products, and we really are shipping them this week. Innova has been great, though, for creating a reprint. So all of you who entered back in stock notifications, that was a huge help because it helped us kind of negotiate a little bit with Innova to let them make more of certain discs that were in very high demand, so above their standard printing limits. They were very kind to do that. And the awesome thing is the lead times, the turnaround times for them to make more discs is so much faster than board games. They're going to have them ready in like 3 weeks. Maybe even a little bit faster, maybe a little bit slower, who knows? But they said their estimate is around 3 weeks, and then they have to ship it to our fulfillment center. So it'll definitely be longer than that for non-US fulfillment centers, because they'll ship to the US first, and then we'll ship to our other fulfillment centers. But that is so much faster than a board game, which takes usually 4 months to manufacture and then 2 months of freight shipping. Yeah, it was exciting and refreshing to hear that from Innova. Archer says, today I beat Automa on Libertalia, and I must say I'm positively surprised about the solo mode for such an interactive game. I managed to gain 42 doubloons on my last voyage alone, and that is good. Archer asks, is that good? And yes, that's great. He says, I love the game presence on my table. I've got it permanently set up to my side for now. And Archer, I'm glad you said that, and I should say, as I should say more often, that I'm so grateful for Morton and David and Carol and Linus and all the Automa Factory team members who create robust solo modes for our games. I think during the pandemic, I think that even now, and especially during the pandemic, that was really, really important to Stonemaier Games. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful that they have been so involved in Stonemaier Games for so long, especially Morton. So thank you, Morton. And I'm so glad they brought joy to people who play our games. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me. And I'm glad you had fun with that solo mode. Do any of you, in fact, while we're talking about that, let me know in the comments if you have played a solo mode from Stonemaier Games, an Automa solo mode, which is Automa refers to kind of a semi-intelligent opponent that doesn't require the maintenance of running a full other player in a game. Let me know your favorite solo mode in a Stonemaier game. Let me know in the comments here. Maybe I'll share that with Morton after I'm done with this video. Daniel says, am I going to be at Gen Con this year? I won't personally be at Gen Con, but Stonemaier Games will have a presence through the MeepleSource booth at Gen Con this year. Yeah. Cliff also said that he played Automa recently for Libertalia, and he says he was up 32 to 30 after one voyage, proving to be fun for sure. That's great, Cliff. Thank you for sharing that. Mark is sharing. People are also sharing their methods for selecting games for game night, which I also love to hear in the comments here from that previous question. Jared asked that question. Mark says, personally, we have a roulette wheel app. Essentially, everyone picks a game and we give it a spin. Once played, it gets removed. Between games, if you've not had a game played, you can change your pick. That's really cool, Mark. I like that a lot. What's the name of that roulette app in case other people want to give that a try? Justin says, over the weekend, he played Dead Reckoning by AEG. I really enjoyed it and found the card crafting system super fun by John DeClaire. Have you ever considered something like this in your games? I love that that's become John DeClaire's thing, although I do love Space by him, and that doesn't include that card crafting system. I have considered it a little bit, but I haven't ever really leaned too deep into it. And the main reason for that at this point is for a while it was like playtesting. It's a challenge to playtest that type of game. But the main reason now is plastic. I've been trying to greatly reduce the amount of plastic in our games. I don't hold it at all against companies who or designers who are including plastic components in their games. It's something that we will continue to do as well. We're making the Wingspan nesting box, which has plastic inserts in it, but we are trying to reduce it for environmental concerns. And so to design a game going in from the beginning saying, this game needs all this plastic for these plastic sleeves is I don't know. That's a knock against it for me from a design perspective. However, I'm really excited to play Dead Reckoning. I'm hoping to play it at Geekway to the West in May. Justin says, I recall you saying that no Stonemaier Games employees have an exact schedule, just that they know what work they have to do. And that's correct, yeah. In fact, Stonemaier Games employees have no set hours. They have as much vacation time as they want, as long as they get the job done. Which there is a slight downside to that. That can sometimes work the opposite way as intended. But yeah, Justin says, I really like this idea. Have you noticed any cons to it though? One concern I have is accidentally overworking myself since I don't have time to call end of day. Yes, that's important for me, I think, to keep in mind. That's one of the few true managerial things I do because Joe and Alan, Alan too, but Joe and Alex are very autonomous. I don't like to do oversight for them. Rather, I want to be there as a support system for them. But so something for me to keep in mind is I try to ask them from time to time how they're doing, how their work-life balance is going, how many hours a week they're working, because really I don't want them working more than 40 hours a week. Ideally, I'd have them work even less than that if they're able to get their job done in that amount of time. So it's something that I keep an eye on for sure to make sure that they're not overworking. And the same goes with vacation time. When you have unlimited vacation time, but no set vacation time, sometimes you can end up not taking it. And that isn't the intended effect. I want my employees to have very fulfilling personal lives so they can bring that joy to the people who benefit from Stonemaier Games. When they come to work, I want that joy to spread to you, to people who are watching this, who consume our games, who play our games. So that to me is really important. And also just because I care about my coworkers, Joe, Alex, Alan, Susanna, Morton, everyone who has some sort of an impact on some of our games, whether they're salaried or waged or an independent contractor. Yeah. Matt mentions here about, we're talking about eco-friendliness. He says he received Winter Haven Woods a while back. It seemed like an outstanding example of sustainable packaging. Paper-wrapped cards, no shrink wrap, one small sticker holding the box closed. I love that, yeah. Definitely a small box game, less potential damage to it, but we're looking hard into moving away from shrink wrapping at Panda, where we make our games. And the sticker, I'm still kind of on the fence about stickers, but maybe we'll give it a try and see how that goes. Yeah, as long as the sticker can come off easily and doesn't leave anything. Nathan says it's his and his wife's 3rd anniversary today. Perhaps we'll celebrate by playing Wingspan. That's awesome, Nathan. Congratulations on your 3rd anniversary with your wife. I'm gonna make a note before I forget about the stickers on boxes. Actually, we have started doing that for small expansion boxes, the types of boxes where we figure people are probably going to throw these away afterwards. Because then if there is residue left by the sticker, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think we've heard any complaints from anyone about that. It's just a little more daunting to do it on a game box that people want really, really pristine. But I might start exploring that at least for bigger expansions too. I don't think we're doing it for like Tuscany yet, but we probably should. And even the Wingspan expansions, I think we could potentially do it there too. The other downside, though, is that moisture can get into the box if it's not shrink wrapped. That's another daunting aspect of it. So yeah, we'll continue to look into that. Tim says his Planet Unknown Deluxe Edition finally arrived yesterday. It's a long time coming, Tim. But yeah, that was a game that we played at Geekway to the West in, October, and had a blast with. Really, really enjoyed Planet Unknown. Tony says, am I digging Moon Knight on Disney? We didn't end up watching it right away last week when it came out on Wednesday, and so we're probably going to watch it today or tomorrow, maybe watch 2 back-to-back episodes. So I haven't watched it yet, but I'm eager and excited to watch it. Yeah. Chad says, is there any way you can have some sort of contest to design a Stonemaier Games disc golf stamp? I would love to take a stab at designing those. We rarely do design contests like that, Chad. However, if someone has, if you are always welcome to create something cool and share it publicly, and let me know. Tag me if you post it publicly, and if I think it's really cool, maybe we'll make it, and we'll definitely give you credit for it and compensate you for the time that you spent on it. So, I think that's my preferred method to contest. Just I want to encourage you to create cool stuff whenever you want, not because there's a set format to do so, and then also. That removes somewhat of an obligation for us. I haven't had great experiences with contests where we didn't get any great submissions, and then we're a little bit obligated to make something out of one of them. So I prefer the more free and flexible format for that kind of thing. Yeah, but feel free to make it and post it somewhere. Wherever you know that I'll see it, and I'd love to check it out. What you create. Yeah, you might want to look at Innova's guidelines. Look at Innova's website. They have certain design guidelines that you have to follow. Molly says that she really enjoyed the April Fool's announcement this year. A non-traditional product, but one I actually want to get a bunch of. I hope Canada can get the other disc styles. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, Molly. For each of the other fulfillment centers, the non-US fulfillment centers, we're going to send a greater variety of discs. Discs that we didn't send the first, although we probably will restock the first one if there is demand for it. And then we'll send at least a few others this time when we restock it. Yeah. Justin says that he really enjoys the Automa and Libertalia. Justin says that he enjoys Red Rising Automa as well. Aurelian says, am I not afraid how the rebalanced Tapestry pack will be received by the community? I'm a big defender of your work to collect data and of the regular updates, but I read so many confusion from players, I wonder how it'll be received. Ideally, I hope it's received well. That's the goal, that we're doing this for the benefit of Tapestry players. There's always the downsides, though. There's the downside that we're going to ask people to pay for this. Not a lot, but we're going to pack it as slim and shippable as we can. But it will be an expense, and I think there will be some backlash there. But I've kind of faced backlash from Tapestry from the very beginning, from the very concept that we would ask people to report data like that. I knew it would bring about the perception that we hadn't playtested Tapestry, which wasn't true at all. We playtested the heck out of it, but I thought it was worth the risk. I thought the upside was worth the potential downside there. And I think that's the case here too. I think the potential upside of not having people need to look at an adjustment guide every time they play, that's just everything's printed right there on the civilization itself. I think the upside to that is worth it. My only small concern is that someday we'll want to adjust them again, and I don't know. That's the risk. I think we'll always collect data for Tapestry. There's no downside, I think, to continuing to collect data, but I am truly hoping that these will be definitive. I'm not going to reprint them again. I know that for sure. But I will have to go into it with the caveat that someday it is possible that we will need to say this adjustment just didn't work out the way we hoped. And that's why we want to play test it now. That's why I put it out there publicly, because I want to get that out of the way now. That play testing out of the way now. Yeah. George says his favorite solo is for Rolling Realms, Tapestry, and Pendulum. Yeah, I asked, if you're catching me right now live, I asked everyone, if you've played a solo mode of Stonemaier games or multiple solo modes, what is your favorite solo mode in a Stonemaier game? Navi says that he thinks that the Libertalia Automa might be his favorite so far. He says it played it and it felt very much like playing against a human player. Nazi earlier asked about Kemet, which version of the Kemet I prefer. And he says he loves the old Kemet with the 1.5 version of the rules. And he says, I'm the same as you, I still haven't played the new one. So we can't compare the new one yet. And Nazi says, if you ever decide to reboot Scythe, I have no plans to ever reboot Scythe. But I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Tim says he also enjoyed the solo modes for Between Two Castles, A Meccan Ludwig, and Red Rising. And David says it might be a lot to ask, but an app-driven Automa makes life so much easier. You know, we kind of decided early on that we would let third-party app creators handle that. That's not something that we're going to manage in-house. I think Sidekick has done a good job of that for Scythe and maybe Wingspan and a few other games. But we are totally open to outside creators doing that. All they need is to get our permission to do so. There's a little agreement they need to sign, but we don't ask for royalties or anything like that. Ideally, they offer it for free, but I completely understand if they want to ask people to pay for it. But yeah, I've heard great things about the apps that third-party developers have made for Automa. Tim says, for the nesting box, for the Wingspan expansion, Wingspan nesting box, are you planning on putting the contents of the next expansion in the nesting box or separate? So due to freight shipping, the high cost of freight shipping right now, we have decided that the first printing of the nesting box will include the next Wingspan expansion inside the box. You can buy the expansion by itself or in the nesting box. And we're also going to most likely, if we can work it out with distributors, we're most likely going to make a print run after that of the nesting box to sell to distributors who will then sell to retailers. But that will require a little bit of negotiations because we don't want the price to be too high, but we know how high the costs are, and we want to make it so it's a little profitable at each level. A little profitable for Stonemaier games, a little profitable for distributors, and definitely profitable for retailers to offer just the nesting box. So first print run will include the expansion in it. Second print run, we'll probably offer both, but on our web store, we'll probably, unless freight shipping prices drastically go down, we'll probably only ever offer the nesting box with the expansion inside of it on our web store. And if you want to get it from a retailer, you'll get an empty nesting box, or not an empty, but because there are components inside the box, but an expansion-free nesting box from a retailer. Yeah. Tim is actually here. Tim, who makes Sidekick, is here right now. He's the one that makes the Automa app for several of our games. Tim, mention in the comments here which games you cover through Sidekick now. Is it just Scythe? That would make more sense if it's just Scythe, but I think you've expanded to other apps as well. Mark says that he enjoys the Automa in Red Rising and Libertalia, but he is hoping for a good walkthrough of how to do the Automa for Tapestry. Is there not a good walkthrough video out there? Let me know in the comments below if you have a good recommendation for Mark for a walkthrough video for the Tapestry Automa system. Dominic says that he played his friend's copy of Libertalia this past weekend, and he really enjoyed it. That's awesome. I love to hear that, Dominic. And let's see. Andrew says there's such a thing as compostable shrink wrap. That would be nice. I think that might be possible. I mean, we're using biodegradable plastic bags right now in our games, so something like that might be possible. You might notice that there's two types of biodegradable plastic bags we use. One is really thin, kind of weak plastic, and the other is opaque but stronger plastic. I don't know if either would really work on the box, but I'll ask about that. Yeah. biodegradable version. Archer says, can I expand on whether game components can or if they usually come from recycled materials? Is there any impediment that you're aware of for using more recycled materials? Archer, you can get a detailed answer about that on my last post about eco-friendliness, because quite a few materials that we make in our games, or that Panda makes for us, are from biodegradable materials. And I don't remember all of them offhand. I think a lot of them are the like the box, the punch boards. They're definitely from player mats, things like that. Game boards, those are almost always from like mostly biodegradable components, but those components are also multi-layer. There's the layer that's just cardboard, and then on top of that is paper that's glued to the top, and that is sometimes biodegradable, but sometimes it's hard to print on certain biodegradable materials. The other alternative to that is finding materials that are sustainably sourced. And so, for example, for the ivory core cards that we use in almost all of our games, that's the type of card stock that we use for cards. It is oftentimes it is FSC certified, so it's sustainably certified. It means that it's coming from sources that are sustainably, like trees and forests that are sustainably sourced, and because trees are a nice renewable resource if you treat them well, if you treat those forests well. So I think those are the two options that you have when you're trying to create cardboard components. But I'm speaking off the cuff here. There's a lot more content about that in my blog post about or my two, maybe three by now, blog posts about eco-friendliness. Yeah. Mark says he's hoping that we find a great Asian fulfillment center in Asia in the future. And I am hoping for that as well. We used to work with one, and it really stopped working out for us. But if there was another one, I'd love to give it a try. One that's comes highly recommended, I think. Nicholas says, is Stonemaier Games considering eco-friendly alternatives to neoprene mats, or is the permanency of the mat worth the cost? That is a consideration. If you're buying a permanent thing, is that, to me, that is better than buying something like shrink wrap, which is immediately thrown away and will never really go away, or will take maybe hundreds of years to go away at best, if ever. So that is a consideration. At the same time, I think that's a great question. I'll ask about more eco-friendly neoprene mats, if that is an option. Yeah. Christopher says he'd be happy with a set of stickers for the Tapestry adjustments. I appreciate that, Christopher. I think the downside there is that we use a very special material. It's called frosted coating on the Civilization mat. So I don't think stickers would adhere all that well to it, and I think they'd be really, really noticeable on it, opposed to a nice sticker on a non-frosted component. So I appreciate that. Maybe it's something we can consider, but and we will certainly offer a downloadable version of the Civ adjustments. But yeah, I think the ideal point is that we will print them and you can just have them, and you won't be able to distinguish them from the other components of the game that haven't been modified. Popovici says, Red Rising's metal cubes and Libertalia's blue-purple cards have big problems in readability. Distinguishing between the colors can be really difficult even in strong light. Is this a matter taken into account? Absolutely, yes. I've talked and written extensively about how, in hindsight, I think the types of cubes that I used, the colors I chose for cubes in Red Rising were a problem. I should have gone with painted cubes. And you can check out our website now. You can see how seriously we took that issue. We remade the metal tokens painted in the core colors of the game that were selected for colorblind friendliness. The purple-blue thing was a little bit more surprising. It certainly was a factor. It's certainly something that we reviewed, including we have a member on our proofreading team who is colorblind, and he reviews components for that, and he didn't even notice it. And I think the reason is because of the way those cards are used. You kind of know where on the ship, where on the island you are putting your card, and so we didn't think it was as important there for colors to have different icons instead of different colors. And we thought the cards would get a little bit crowded if we put icons on there. However, what we should have done, honestly, in hindsight, is just used a lighter blue to make it more differentiated from the purple. So absolutely, this is something that we think about all the time. I have several articles about accessibility and how we really do think about it, but sometimes we also miss things. And so that was what happened with the blue and the purple in Libertalia. I would suggest simply not playing with one of those colors. I think in the vast majority of games in Libertalia, you don't need both of those colors. You can just choose one of them. Yeah. Molly says, "I love that Tapestry has patches. As a lover of balanced asymmetrical games, it's the best way, in my opinion. Either that or adding more and more to variable and modular setups are my favorite solutions." I definitely like that. Yeah, and I appreciate you being open to the patches, Molly. I think it's a good system to have for any game with strong asymmetry. Why not collect that data over time? Like, why stop at the playtesting data when you could also gather data from tens of thousands of playtests or plays after the game is published? I don't think there's a big downside in doing that. Tim says, "I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about the nesting box. Will you put the expansion box?" Oh, he's asking about the expansion box. No. One of the benefits of putting the expansion in the nesting box is that we don't need to have a duplicate box there. We'll just put the expansion components in the nesting box, not the expansion box itself, which is also more eco-friendly that way. Yeah. Todd says, "Board games provide better play-tested and polished products than current software. It seems acceptable to provide incomplete software and people pay for it, and then they seem okay with the updates that happen over time." He says, "I find the approach of small updates, just like the player boards, with a small cost acceptable." Thank you, Todd, for being open to that. I appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. Like, it's a different world than in software digital games where they can really release a patch at any time. They have wonderful freedom to do that, and maybe sometimes companies abuse that freedom a little bit. It's definitely our intent for every game to have it perfect out of the gate, so there doesn't ever need to be a patch or an update. But yeah, if we have a popular game and a lot of people play it, the data we get there is incredibly useful, and I like that we have a way of gathering that for Tapestry. Tim says, "Will the expansion box be..." Okay, so Tim's asking the same question. "Will the expansion box for Wingspan be in the nesting box or just the content?" Just the content. There's really no need to have a duplicate box in that case. Okay, Tim clarified that he has Sidekick for Scythe and Wingmate for Wingspan. And Tim, are you planning to do any Automa apps for any of our other games as well? I'm curious to hear what you say about that, or what you have working on there, if you want to reveal it. Nicola also says that he thinks that he's mainly a solo player and he loves what Morton does with Automa Factory. He says one that stands out for him right now is in Euphoria, where you're playing against two Automa, so it's like playing a 3-player game. And he's referring specifically to the Automa found in the Euphoria expansion. It's one of the few games that we have where the Automa isn't in the core game, it's only in the expansion. That and Between Two Castles are the two games that do that. Nash says, "Just want to thank you for producing such great games." Thank you, Nash, for saying that. Him and his friends just got into the hobby recently. Welcome to the gaming hobby, and thank you for showing up here to say hi. And he says, "Summer Games has become my favorite publisher, and now I own just about every game." That means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing that. He says that he's just missing some expansions. Question for you. What is your favorite board game, and what is your favorite Stonemaier game? It's hard for me to pick a favorite Stonemaier game because I really do love them all. My favorite Stonemaier game to play with anyone at any given moment is the game that they want to play. They want to play or learn or play with me. So that it varies based on who you are, not who I am for that. My favorite game right now, I have a YouTube channel, Nash, where I talk about my favorite games in a bunch of different categories, and twice a year I post my favorite game of all time as of that moment. And right now I would say it's Dune Imperium. I really, really love Dune Imperium. But that changes all the time based on how I feel about various games. Yeah. But check out my YouTube channel if you want to see some of my other favorite picks in other categories. Zach says, "What are my thoughts on Ethnos?" I haven't played Ethnos yet, but I'm hoping to play it at Geekwood of the West in May. Yeah. And Zach mentions, is there any chance that Stonemaier Games could create an updated version of Ethnos? Given that I haven't played it, currently no possibility of that. And I don't know, I can't say much, but I think your question will be answered soon and not by Stonemaier Games. Yeah. Justin says, "Speaking of trying to make cars and components out of more eco-friendly materials," or cards and components, not cars, "have you considered using hemp as a replacement for paper? I'm very novice when it comes to this, but I wondered if I've ever considered using hemp." I haven't considered using hemp specifically, but I have asked Panda about different options like that. The one that I love the most is bamboo. I think bamboo grows really easily, really quickly, and really well. And so I've asked Panda a couple times about if there are any opportunities to use bamboo in the components for our games. Yeah. George says, "Do I like swimming?" He says he's been going swimming for 2 months now, and it's definitely a game changer. You know, I'm not. I'm more of a land guy. I like to run and walk. The activities that I love are on land. So even when I go to the beach, I spend most of the time on the beach itself, like throwing the frisbee, throwing the football, playing lawn games. I don't go into the water all that much. So no, I'm not a big swimmer. No. Speaking of outdoor activities, I went to the local farmers market, Tower Grove here in St. Louis this past weekend. They opened it for the spring. Had a great time running through there. And then I went to disc golf afterward and played a fun round of disc golf with some of the new discs that we recently made for April Fools. Also had a nice brunch with friends this weekend. Some games I played. Taught a friend who has kids. I taught him and his family how to play the Adventures of Robin Hood game. And I also played Namiji. Got my copy of Namiji. Talked about it yesterday on my YouTube channel. That's the sequel to Tokaido. And I also played Lizard Wizard. Megan taught me how to play Lizard Wizard after she learned it a couple weeks ago at game night. And I played Gugong at game night recently as well. Not for the first time, for maybe the third or fourth time. What else is going on? Did blog post about April Fools last week, and a blog post, a semi-guest post, mostly guest post this week from Balaz, whose campaign for the Legacy of Thrax went live just yesterday on Kickstarter. We also watched the movies Coda and Death on the Nile this past weekend, and I enjoyed both of them quite a bit. Coda I really, really loved. Coda is... I haven't cried that much while watching a movie in a long time, but it really, really pulled at my heartstrings. Coda stands for Child of Deaf Adults, and it's just it was incredibly moving to me, and I would highly recommend it. Death on the Nile is just a fun kind of murder mystery movie, but I really like that as well. And what else is going on? Oh, my Rolling Realms playthrough this week will be on Friday. I'm going to show you something cool that I'm going to play with this weekend. So John at, what is the name of John's company? John at Gatekeeper Games. He makes custom dice. And he decided to make custom dice specifically for Rolling Realms. And he sent me these giant dice, kind of colored after Stonemaier Games colors, that I'm going to play with this past weekend. You can see, even though Rolling Realms dice are pretty big, these are even bigger. They're giant dice, and they're kind of marbled. They look great. So I'm going to play with these dice on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think is the plan for this week's Rolling Realms playthrough. And John also sent me some extra dice. You can also get them from his website at Gatekeeper Games. And yeah, just looking forward to playing with them, seeing how they roll, these giant dice roll in my dice tray. Jerry says he's loving Libertalia, and he says the most often criticism he's seen is the change to the anthropomorphic animals instead of keeping all human pirates. What was the decision-making discussion for this change? He says, I love it for what it's worth. There's a couple different factors there, Jerry. I would say the main factor is that in making a completely new version of Libertalia, we wanted to make it abundantly clear through the visuals that it is a new version that we took very seriously in making a new version of. So we didn't want to use the same artistic style. We definitely didn't want to use the same art from the original. And we wanted to add something fresh to it, some bright colors that would have the game come to life in a different way than the original. Not that the original did. The original is has this Pirates of the Caribbean look, and the new version, Winds of Galecrest, is set in a different world and has these animal-style human characters. Not human, animal-style people, as you said, anthropomorphic animals. That's just a different world. I think it has a brighter, cheerier feel to it. And also, a small consideration there is that it kind of being a little more welcoming, I think, to people who want to play the game. In the original Libertalia, by far, most of the pirates were men. There were very few women. And I think it's hard to choose when you're choosing gender and age and ethnicity and all the different factors that go in when you create a human character for a game. You're also, even if it's not intentional, you're implying, okay, this character, this type of person is this character. And I kind of wanted to stay away from that because I didn't want to say like, okay, this character, who's a random character, the captain, that this is what a captain looks like. They are, whatever age, gender, ethnicity we chose for that character, it makes a small statement. And I didn't want to make that statement about humans. I think any person can be a captain. Any person can be a brute. Any person can be a mutineer. All these different types of pirates. And so for that reason, that's another part of a small factor why we went with animal characters in Libertalia Winds of Galecrest. Carlos dropped in to say he hopes I'm having a great day. I am indeed having a great day, Carlos. Thank you. Looking forward to making some stir-fried rice for lunch. I just saw a friend of mine posted a recipe for stir-fried rice. So I'm going to make that for lunch after this live cast. Arthur asks, what's the chocolate of the day? I mentioned this right at the beginning of the live cast. Megan recently ate most of a Tony's chocolate bar, and she left me this nice middle part from the chocolate bar that I will enjoy. That's a Tony's chocolate with hazelnut. That's my favorite version of a Tony's chocolate bar. What else is going on here? I have some other questions to answer. I'll get to those in a second. I think I've covered everything else. Thank you all for being patient about the viticulture expansion. I am so excited to reveal it to you next Wednesday, but I appreciate you not pestering me too much about it today. In fact, it seems like you're a little more curious about the Wingspan nesting box that we're working on, which won't be ready until early Q4. So probably October is what we're looking at for that. Craig says he's digging the t-shirts today, my Red Rising Howler shirt. Any chance of expansions to Red Rising with characters from the 4th, 5th, and 6th book if there will be an expansion to that? We haven't decided yet what we're doing. We're kind of waiting for the 6th book to come out, hopefully later this year, maybe early in 2023. And then we'll decide what to do next, whether it's an expansion and what type of expansion it will be, or if it'll be kind of a spin-off or a sequel, or if we do nothing. We don't really know yet. We'll have to wait and see. So we haven't decided yet about that. Yeah. Quint says, have I watched Moon Knight yet? He says he's loving it. I haven't played it yet. I haven't watched it yet, but I am looking forward to it, to watching last week's episode and this week's episode. We're also watching Halo right now. We're watching Survivor. We just started the show Invasion on Apple TV. What else are we watching? We're watching hopefully a new episode of Abbott Elementary today, and we're close to finishing the 2nd season of Upload on Amazon Prime. So a lot of different shows bouncing around, waiting for new episodes of different shows. Allison and Tony both said that they loved Coda, the movie Coda, which is on Apple TV as well, if you want to check it out. Arama says, I love the 4-letter code names that Stonemaier Games comes up with. Could you share how you came up with this idea? He also says that, I'll get to the second question in a second. I'm trying to think of the origination of that. I know I have a blog post about it at some point. I don't think it was my original idea. I think I got it from someone else, but I can't remember who I got it from at this point. I don't know. I'm sorry I can't credit whoever came up with that idea, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person. Part of it may have been companies like Apple who say, like, this is what we're working on. Oh, I think it might have been Magic the Gathering. Magic does it for their new sets. They say, here's our new set coming out in 2 years, and it's codenamed Apple and Oranges. And it really gives nothing away about what the set is for Magic. Our code names do hint a little bit more at what it can be, but they also can be a little tricky. We can do a little some red herrings in there as well. He says also, I noticed that Fire replaced Cape during the January 2022 newsletter. Were those 2 separate games or an updated code name? I'm glad you asked about that, but I've tried to stay away from answering any questions about code names because I don't want to give anything away there. They are meant to be shrouded in mystery, whether or not they come and go, whether or not they change, things like that. So I'm not going to answer that. I think it's a great question, but I'm not going to answer that question about code names. Arama says that he also enjoys Survivor. I love Survivor. Season 42 happening right now. Nicholas says, 2 games revealed to hopefully be played at Geekway. Is there a play game with Jamey booth at Geekway, or how do people politely ask you to play a game while you're currently playing one? Do you use Slack for Geekway? So I've learned at Geekway not to schedule anything and really not to commit to anything because it just creates some awkward situations. And so I really just go with the flow. And I encourage everyone who wants to play a game with me or everyone who's going to Geekway to just go with the flow. Play a game. Don't tell someone I'm going to play a game with you. Like if you're sitting down to play a game at 10 o'clock, don't tell someone I'm going to join you at 11 o'clock for your game, because then you might feel like you're rushing the 10 o'clock game, or if you finish really early and then you're just kind of waiting around for that 11 o'clock game. So I try not to schedule anything. I just play what's there at that moment for me to play. Part of that involves me walking around and looking at what other people are playing. Sometimes I go to the Play and Win and I check out a game and I walk around and I try to find someone to play it with. And if you want to play a game with me, which I would be honored to play a game with anyone who wants to play a game with me at Geekway, well, note what I'm saying now. Don't try to schedule anything with me. Rather, if you see me wandering around or if you see me not playing a game, come up and say, hey, Jamey, I want to play a game with you. And I will be happy to hear from you and happy to play a game with you. Unless I for some reason, I'm definitely already playing a game in the next few minutes. I think that's the best way to do it. If I am in the middle of a game, you're still free to pop by and say like, hey, Jamey, just wanted to say hi. Hoping to play this game with you later. That is totally fine. Totally fine. But I think scheduling anything creates some complications in Geekway. I've learned from past mistakes in that. Yeah. Not big errors, but just little awkwardnesses. Tim says, would I consider making plush toys for My Little Scythe characters? I've heard that Greater Than Games has done that with some of their lines of games. It isn't something that I've thought about all that much. I have my doubts that, like, usually the MOQ, the minimum order quantity for anything is usually 1,000 units. Maybe it could be smaller for toys like that, but I can't imagine that we would sell 1,000 units of a plush toy for My Little Scythe. Yeah. George says, any idea of when the signed cards are going to restock on our European shop? I don't know exactly. I know they're being shipped there right now. Should be probably in the next week or so. Just make sure you sign up for a back in stock notification and we'll let you know when they're back in stock. But it should be pretty soon. I know they're en route and I think we shipped them a few weeks ago, so it shouldn't be all that long now. They may have already gotten back in stock. I feel like I've seen Joe send some back in stock notifications very recently. Tim says he's watching the 3rd season of Servant on Apple TV, and he just caught up on all the things related to The Walking Dead. Do you recommend Servant? What's that about, Tim? I haven't heard of Servant, I don't think. Adam says that he just wanted to let me know that he bought Viticulture on Sunday. Thank you for doing that, Adam. He says, we bought it from Eric at Stone Valley Games in Huntsville, Alabama, and he said that he has talked to you in the past about some different things. I don't remember speaking specifically to Eric, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to speak with him at some point. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for buying the game there. Adam also says, I know Monster Couch makes Wingspan for the Switch and all digital versions of Wingspan. Does that mean that you don't have a say in the game on that platform? I'm trying to make them aware of an issue, but nobody will get back to me on it. You're right that we don't really have a say in what they do with the digital games, but we do. They want to make us happy and we want to make our customers happy. So if you aren't hearing back from them about an issue and you've submitted it through the official Monster Couch channels, feel free to email me with that issue, jamey@stonemargames.com, and I can forward it on to Monster Couch so they're aware of it. Tim says, I saw that Elizabeth Hargrave has 2 new games that she's playtesting. He's looking forward to seeing what they are. The Tussie Mussy expansions are nice, and I know the next Wing expansion will be a hit. I hope so. I actually have the Tussie Mussy expansions, but haven't gotten to play with them yet. I've been meaning to get them to the table. Maybe I'll play them tonight at game night. Archer says, is this Geekway to the West? Will you attend all the days? Is it mostly a convention for playtesting, or are there any talks? It's mainly a convention for just playing a bunch of published games. That's primarily what I do there. I don't really go into it. I definitely don't hear pitches at it. I am just there to play published games with people. And I use it at least partially to play a bunch of games that I don't normally have access to, and maybe that I don't want to necessarily buy, but I just want to play once and see how it is, and then later I might buy it, or I might just talk about it on my YouTube channel. Yeah, it's mostly just a come and play games for 4 days, and I will be there all 4 days, or at least I'm planning to be there all 4 days, Thursday through Sunday. Okay, Mario. Nicola clarified that the signed cards are back in stock in the European shop. So maybe, I can't remember who asked about that. George, maybe. George, maybe you missed the back in stock notification. It might be in your spam folder, but I'm glad to hear they're back in stock. Thank you, Nicola, for sharing that. Mario says, will Viticulture Essentialist Edition be available for purchase in the Star Game store at the same time as the new expansion? As long as we don't sell through 1,000 copies in the next couple weeks, yes, it will be. But it's currently in stock. You can buy it now if you want, or you could wait and buy it together with the new expansion when that pre-order goes live in a few weeks. Yeah. So we have enough in stock for that to be true, but we never know how quickly we'll actually sell through that stock. Brenda says that thank you for the recommendation about Abbott Elementary. I'm glad you're checking that out, Brenda. We've really been enjoying Abbott Elementary. It's scratched that itch that The Office left for me, because it's a very similar show. Okay, Tim says Servant sounds like a pretty creepy show. I don't know if you like creepier shows than I do, Tim, but I always appreciate the recommendations. David says, will I be at Essen Spiel this year? He'll be doing his first live booth there, and he's getting excited. That's awesome to hear for you, David. I won't be there personally, but I think Alex, my coworker Alex, will be there. Yeah. Mark says, will there be a restock for the Euphoria expansion and the updated game board in the future? Currently, I don't think we have any more game boards on the way. We have I guess I didn't realize that we were out of stock of them, but we don't have any of those in progress. I don't think we're currently reprinting the Euphoria expansion either. We might let Euphoria sit for a little bit before we bring it back into stock to see what the demand is for it for us to bring it back. I'm sure we'll bring it back at some point, but currently we don't have any reprints in motion, in production right now. George says, just today he was checking and he didn't see here, let me pull this up, George, while we're talking about the signed cards on the European store. Let's check that out. I'll pull up the Europe store and look for signed. And what do we have here, George? Yeah, they're back in stock. They're on the web store, the European web store. Yeah, you can get those from us now. And I think they're back. They're in stock everywhere as far as I know. Yeah. Mario says, have I considered games with space or sci-fi themes? Tapestry delves a little bit into that. There's like an aliens faction in it, or alien civilization. You can go into outer space and there are space tiles you can get. But I don't think we currently, and Red Rising too. Red Rising is a space themed game as well. And so, yeah, we have a few games in that with that theme in it. And it's possible that I'll consider it in the future. I generally steer more towards, I would say, like land-based fantasy than space-based games in terms of games and fiction in general, but I'm entirely open to it for the right game. Yeah. All right, let me see if there's anything else I haven't covered today. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. And I'm going to go make some fried rice. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this week's live chat. It was great to chat with you, to hear your thoughts, your favorite Automa modes, how you pick which games you play at game night, and great to answer your questions as well. Hopefully I got to all of them. And I will put this video up on YouTube in case you have any further questions to go. Actually, I have one question from Nash here before I go. He says, so I know you talked about it earlier, but for the Red Rising metal cubes, the purple and red colors are very hard to distinguish, and so are the blue and green. Do you have any recommendations for any stores or shops that sell metal cubes in different colors? So Nash, we definitely colorblind tested those colors, so I'm a little surprised to hear that. But I know there are different types of color blindness, and that can play a role in it. But we really did try to... Oh, Nash, you were talking about the original metal cubes. So we sell painted versions of the metal cubes now on our web store, and they are much easier to differentiate than the original versions of the cube. So check out our web store. You can see there's an update pack for the collector's edition of Red Rising that has painted versions of the metal cubes that are much, much easier to differentiate than the original in the box version. Win says, is this t-shirt available for sale? This isn't my shirt. I don't remember exactly where I bought it now, but if you search for like Red Rising Howler t-shirt or Howler's t-shirt, I'm sure you'll find it. But I can't remember offhand where I bought this shirt. It isn't something that we sell. All right, I'm going to take off. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day, and I'll see you over on YouTube if you have any additional comments or questions after this video ends, which is happening right now.